All right. Well, welcome back to MI Tech TV. It's believe it or not, it's April 1st, no fooling. And we've got three guests on the show today, and one of them is Chris Cook, the managing director of Capital Access at the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. And I was just chatting with him before we started, and Odie McKinney, who does the PR for MEDC, all these acronyms, sent me this information late last week, and I was in the middle of everything else and wasn't able to really digest it. But there's a couple of new funds available, and so I requested that Chris come on the show and talk about what's going on and how that money can be used. So why don't we start with that, Chris?
Well, yeah, thank you. Appreciate the invitation. Uh, Last week at the Michigan Strategic Fund Board, there were two investments approved, totaling up to $22 million. And those investments relate to our organization's effort to support early stage capital availability. So those two funds, venture investors and the Future Heritage Fund, were both approved for $11 million each. And we're going to start working on documentation for those such that funding will be available hopefully later this year.
Well,
So
before
if you could please describe what those two funds are, what the aims of those two funds are. Let's start there.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is part of a larger initiative to support early stage funding opportunities. So the two funds, venture investors relates specifically to healthcare companies. And so that fund would relate to investment in early stage healthcare, biopharma, medical device related industries. The other fund, Future Heritage Fund, is seeking support for or seeking to fund early stage companies in a variety of industries with a focus on underrepresented markets and socially and economically disadvantaged individual-owned businesses, which are a target of the federal funding under SSBCI, or the State Small Business Credit Initiative, just to add some more initials in.
lots of initials to keep track of. So let's define that a little bit because you got all these entrepreneurs thinking money. Hey, we got money available, but it's really aimed at a certain demographic and types of people, right?
Right. So these are the first two investments or commitments, I should say, for investment into funds. That's 22 million of up to 75 million, which has been allocated to this program, and we anticipate bringing forth several more requests for commitment in this pot of money over the next year. And so in all cases, each fund is going to have a bit different target in terms of market segment. But in all cases, we're anticipating that those funds will be seeking out opportunities for funding, equity funding to, early stage companies, companies that are otherwise high tech, regardless of industry, with the hope of developing new or market disruptive technologies.
All right, and this program does require a private sector match, right? Dollar for dollar.
Right. So this program, again, it's the State Small Business Credit Initiative, or SSBCI. The Michigan Strategic Fund received an award of up to $236 million under this program just about 2 years ago. The remainder of the funding is going to debt programs. This specific funding will be going to equity, but in all cases across both the debt and equity programs, there must be at least a one-to-one match of private sector funding to the SSBCI capital. So in order for each of these funds to be able to call the entirety of the 11 million, they will have to raise equivalently at least an additional 11 from other private sector investors. So the goal of the program at a minimum is to hit a 1-to-1 ratio on investments, but across the program, over the 10-year life, we aim to hit a 10-to-1 ratio. So that's over $2 billion in total private sector investment.
Wow.
Now, is this for companies that already are commercial or pre-commercial or exactly what? Because it's a big differences there.
Yeah, so it's going to be largely, pre-commercial, pre-revenue. These are intended to be early stage, pre-seed, seed, maybe Series A investing. There may be opportunities in certain funds to move a little further down the line. But in all cases, the target is really early stage companies that are kind of too early in the operating cycle to be able to obtain debt, and therefore must go through an equity route.
So before Matt leaps in there, let me kind of hone that in a little bit more. For instance, this would be kind of like an angel round kind of money, or this would be friends and family. I mean, those are different levels. Friends and families usually, 20, 50 grand or something if you're lucky. But then angel usually is around 200, 250. So where are we at exactly?
So we're going to be, past the friends and family, largely past angel, into pre-seed, seed,
Venture money then essentially.
venture capital money in all cases.
Okay, yeah, got it. I
So
wanted to be
early
clear on
stage
that.
venture.
Yeah,
Early
right.
stage venture.
Yes.
So each fund manager is going to operate their own fund, right? So who are the fund managers so far?
So for Future Heritage Foundation, the management company is Union Heritage, which have principals with a number of years of experience. And then venture investors, they have actually operated, this will be their 7th fund that they've been operating over the course of nearly 2 decades. And so they have offices in Ann Arbor as well as Madison, Wisconsin. And so those are the 2 management groups that will be operating these. And so they will, through the management company and the general partner, intake and review all applications and make all decisions regarding an investment. That's going to be completely outside of the scope of what MEDC does. We are strictly operating as an investor in these cases.
And so far, this very large sum of money, the 236 million, I think you've allocated previously about 45 million. Is that correct?
Right. So we've actually dispersed through our debt programs about $45 million. And so we are on pace. The U.S. Treasury provides this funding in 3 tranches, and we have to use 80% of the first tranche of just under 72 million in order to be able to request the second round. And so we're getting, based on just the debt programs, very close to being able to request that second round. We have until May of next year to do so, but it's good that we're able to get this out the door much sooner than that and be able to keep this money going. And then as we close on the venture capital funds and those funds in turn make investments, that will of course increase the disbursement and further assist in making sure that the state of Michigan has access to the entirety of the allocation of 236 million.
So have there been discussions on what's going to be done with the rest of that allocation beyond this program?
Oh yeah. So the remainder of the allocation is set aside specifically at this time for debt programs, and those have all been operating, partnering with banks, credit unions, CDFIs, through a number of different programs, and that's how the initial 45 has been dispersed to date. In terms of the venture capital program, as I mentioned, we now have commitments for 22 million of the $75 million allocation. We have a number of applicants in the pipeline at this point. Due diligence is continuing on all of those, and so we anticipate by the end of 24, we will be very close to fully committed out of that 75 million.
Hmm. And so, how does one reach out to you or whomever at the MEDC to apply, I guess, or how does that all play out?
So if there's a fund investment that is or a fund seeking an investment, there is an application which is posted. That's been up for over a year now. It did take some time to get this up and running, but we're feeling confident now that we've gotten our first two commitments. So a fund can invest through that. Individual companies that are seeking investment can apply directly through each fund. We're not doing MEDC is not taking any action with regard to individual company applications. It will be the fund that performs all financial due diligence and ultimately makes a decision. So we received those commitments last week. There's still some legal work to do before we get to a first closing with each of those. So candidly, it may be a few months, before either of those funds is able to begin to actually make investments. But any of those funds, I'm sure soon will have materials available to be able to contact them and begin that due diligence process.
So I'm just curious, how does this fit into the overall mission of the MEDC in terms of fostering business expansion and new business locations to Michigan? Where does this fit into the overall strategy?
So part of the mission and the strategic plan of MEDC, is access to capital, support for underserved communities, and supporting early stage founders, specifically in a few key industries. And so, we feel like that this opportunity and these funds really address all of those. We have an opportunity because this is federal money to support underserved communities, based on the requirements of the federal program. But also supporting early stage support in things like advanced manufacturing, mobility, medical. Those are all key industries which have been identified by the MEDC. And so this isn't something we're necessarily moving companies to Michigan. We're taking existing entrepreneurs and ideas and hoping to grow, the next big company or market segment, and have that growth occur, here in Michigan.
Hmm.
All righty then. Any follow-up questions, Matt?
No, I think we've covered it pretty well. This is a very interesting development. If people want more information on it, how do they get a hold of you and other folks at the MEDC about this?
So, I'll direct everyone to our website, which is michiganbusiness.org. There's information on all of the debt programs. And again, we expect very soon, now that we've got those commitments, we'll have some additional information and routing for the funds as those become, those come online over the course of the next several months.